I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. One of my favorite things, and I mean favorite things about hosting this show is our profile episodes. I honestly didn't expect this before I started sitting in this chair most weekdays. You know, this is one guest going deep on their life, their stories, their work, their reflections on this city that we live in, Middle Tennessee, Nashville. And today we're bringing you the best of 2026 so far. I'm in the studio with Tasha A.F. Limley, our managing editor. Are we deep enough in 26?
As you said that, I was just kind of staring like, oh my gosh, best of 2026 so far. I guess we are we're coming up on a quarter in, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like Q1. It's Q1. But because it seems like a long time ago that we talked to Ben Slinkard. He's a teacher in metro schools, even past teacher of the year for the district, beloved by students, and some of them even know about his other life as Kennedy Ann Scott. She's kind of a big deal. He recently wrote a book with some other big drag performers around the country, and we talked to Ben back in January. What was growing up like?
Growing up, that's a difficult question because I always say my parents are good people. They just didn't always know how best to help and support me. And so it was rough growing up outside the home, going to school, being bullied relentlessly for just merely being myself, talking, walking, all those basic things. It was not fun growing up in a small town and constantly being ridiculed for being different.
Yeah. But what was being different in your growing up? Like, what were they picking on?
Most of the time it was how I talked. I talked very high pitch, or I had that little baby, lovely little gay lisp.
Where did that come from? Were you like, this is just me?
Yeah.
I'm not. You don't even know.
Me.
What did you think at the time? Like, did you understand what that might mean, or what that? Where was your head?
Well, I knew that I liked boys at a very early age, 5. Like, I knew I liked boys. Yeah. I liked them, not just as friends. Like, I was like, well, that boy's really cute, and I was like, am I supposed to feel like that? Because from the moment we're born, we put children into boxes: pink for girls, blue for boys. I mean, we do this, and so what's right, what's wrong. I would always go into my kindergarten classroom, and there was this yellow dress with daisies on it, and it was my favorite thing in the world to put on. I always wanted to be the mom. I always wanted to help people, and then I would race the girls to the dress-up trunk and be like, "Nope, I'm the mom. You all are the sisters," because I guess I just wanted to be in charge. So maybe I was bossy, but there was just something about it, like me being me. And then...
Yeah, that's going to get you picked on in elementary school.
It is. Because we constantly put children in these boxes.
Yeah.
And so anything that is outside the norm is automatically ridiculed and told, whoa, put that away. And I hate when people or when parents are like, oh, you can be whatever you want to be. Mm-hmm. And when children start to show you who they want to be, we say, no, that's not what we meant. And it happens all the time. And I see parents do it to their kids all the time. And I think they subconsciously do it, but they do it.
You're saying even parents who think of themselves as very open-minded, and then suddenly kid shows themselves, and they're like, are you sure that's you?
Yeah. And the way that we just talk about kids, like I have cousins who will be like, oh, he's going to be a little heartbreaker. Why are we already putting that on him?
Wow.
Let's not, what? Let's not say that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting what we subconsciously do without even noticing it.
Yeah. Would you mind telling us about your grandmother?
Yeah. She was my favorite person in the whole world.
Yeah.
I think she still is my favorite person because, she's been gone now for quite a while.
Is this right that she died right before you left town for college?
Yes. The Sunday before I moved into my college dorm of my freshman year. She passed away on a Sunday, and I moved into college on a Friday morning.
So why did she it seems like she just got you. Like,
she did.
What did she see that even your parents really struggled to see?
I think she saw me because, like, in high school and middle school and all that, I would play hooky from school sometimes just because I just couldn't go to school. It was supposed to be, like, I loved going to school. It was my favorite thing because I loved to learn. And that was the one thing in my life that I could control, was what knowledge I put into my brain. Everyone could tell me everything about myself, but the one thing that they could not control was how much information I took in and held in my brain. And when I would play hooky from school and I'd go to my grandmother's just to hang out, I was supposed to be sick, but she would teach me how to cook. She would teach me how to sew. And she never said, oh, boys don't do that. Or she never said, oh, go play with your cousins, go play with the boys, go hang out in the living room. She just showed me how to cook. She just showed me how to sew. We did arts and crafts. We would draw and doodle and do all of these things. And she would just sit there with me, and we would just visit, and then we would just talk for hours.
That's Ben Slinkard reflecting on his grandmother on this program. Really just to sort of start out the year, we're listening to some of our favorites from the Q1 of 2026. Blake Farmer in the studio with Tasha A.F. Lindley, managing editor here at This Is Nashville. Tasha, what is it about Ben that just makes us all want to go sit and listen to him for a while?
Oh my gosh, like this. He's a natural storyteller, it seems like. He's been so thoughtful about his own stories. And then I can't imagine getting to grow up under a teacher like this that not only understands their own struggles and losses, but gosh, that's got to trickle over to the students, right? This supportive force.
I know. And he works with like the gifted and talented program. And obviously he is that himself. And I don't think he wears it on his sleeve, his Kennedy Ann Scott drag performer life. Some kids know about it, but I think he chooses the right times to sort of share some of the struggle it has been to grow up with a family like you just described.
And then to lose the one family member that seemed to really get him, or it seemed to really embrace him. Yeah, it's
beautiful. Well, listen, we kind of take you all over the place on This Is Nashville, even when we're doing interviews. And Tasha, we've had more sports on this winter and spring, if that's what this is.
I'm so glad you've really brought us some great guys.
I didn't mean to. And we're actually going to get to one later this hour. We're going to talk to a very famous athlete who lives in Middle Tennessee, Scott Hamilton. But right now, I wanted to talk a little bit about baseball because we dreamed of spring weather as we talked to Will General, who is leading the charge to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville. When I was a kid growing up here, we certainly had the Nashville Sounds back at Greer. Briefly had the Nashville Cats, arena football. Now we've got football, hockey, soccer. Is there room for Major League Baseball?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we are firm believers that there is plenty of opportunity for baseball. I mean, for football to be successful here, for hockey to be successful here, for soccer to be successful here, baseball is actually the easy one out of all of it. This is a baseball town and a baseball region. I mean, with Vandy right around the corner, with the University of Tennessee, I mean, SEC baseball across this entire region, baseball is the easy one. And I think the nice thing about baseball is it fills those dog days of summer that those other sports really aren't there. I mean, obviously Nashville SC plays during the summer, but it's a very sparse schedule compared to baseball playing 162 games in 185 days.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing a Nashville Stars hat with a very cool logo. And I honestly didn't know that folks working to bring a team here had already kind of decided that if they could, the intention was to give a nod to the Negro Leagues and the Nashville Stars who played here. You even have the president of the Negro League Museum as part of your board and the initiative. Who owns the Nashville Stars? Is that a thing you have to get permission to use?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting approach for an expansion or a relocation team to lean into brand and story this early on. But when you find a story that is that worth telling, it's worth investing in it. So, I mean, this hat that you see being worn here, we went on sale in March of 2025. We have sold in 50 states, 10 non-U.S. countries, over $100,000 of merchandise for a team that doesn't quite exist yet. So,
or did exist at some point.
Did exist, and we hope to bring back. The Nashville Stars were a Negro Leagues team. They played here in the 40s and the 50s. They played at Sulphur Dell, not too far away from where we are right now.
Which would be like just below the state capitol,
That's
right?
exactly right. Right in that location, right off Jefferson Street. So we actually found this story by going to the library and looking at microfilm and microfiche, and we found 2 photos of this team. One of them is 4 of the original players that were a part of that team wearing Nashville Stars jerseys. This is the second piece of photographic evidence we have. This is the original barnstorming bus. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I mean, these Negro League teams didn't always have a place to play, and they were regularly on the road trying to find a field, trying to find a team, oftentimes outside of a barn, going to play there. I mean, they were eating their meals on these buses. They were sleeping on these buses. I mean, there were lots of places they weren't allowed in at that time. So we found these 2 pieces of evidence, and we called Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum based in Kansas City. And we said, what do you know? And he really said, I don't know a whole lot more than you do, which is an interesting thing for a guy who knows everything about it.
Right.
So we went on this mission to say, instead of just telling this story, let's build the future for the Nashville Stars.
Are there still people who were related to those guys who played here in town?
Very much so. We know the 4 players and we know their families. And actually yesterday was one of the cooler moments since I've been in this job. But Sidney Bunch, who's photographed here in this photo here, his daughter and daughter-in-law and his 2 grandsons, Sidney the 4th, one of them, were in our office yesterday, and they brought boxes of more information. We found more photos than these 2 that we knew we had. There is a deep baseball history, a deep black baseball history here in town, and we think it's worthwhile to tell that story.
So do you know at this point where a stadium might be built if needed?
That's really our job right now, is to pave the way for Major League Baseball to come here. And there are a few big things that we need to figure out. One of them being is, where do you build a future venue? And I intentionally say venue and not stadium or ballpark, because we think it will be used far more than just the 81 nights a year that you're playing home games. So we're working with Lincoln Property Company. They're currently working with the Cleveland Browns on their new development out there. It is their job and our job with them to identify the right location for that stadium.
What's the most likely outcome here if there were a team? Would it be an expansion team or a relocation?
Yeah, we are fully focused on expansion at this point. The commissioner in Major League Baseball has been very open about wanting to add 2 new franchises. The league has some things that they need to get through before we're talking about expansion or really moving in that direction. The collective bargaining agreement between the league and the Players Association expires at the end of this season, the end of 2026. So once they get through that, we really believe that expansion will be the hottest thing to talk about.
Yes, it will.
Well, we're still talking. You know, one of the things, Tasha, that came up, by the way, this is Blake Farmer, host of the show. Tasha A. F. Limley, our managing editor. You're listening to This is Nashville. Listening back to some of our interviews from the first quarter of the year as we think about our favorite things. You know, I was so struck by this story. I must admit I was not following the baseball pursuit as much as maybe I should have been. And the fact that the group that is trying to bring a team here already has this name for it that has such meaning here, that it was this Negro League team that played very near where they would like to build a stadium, I thought was so compelling. And when he told us that they were actually still meeting some of the people who had family members who played on that team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's exactly what we want to bring the history to life each day.
You know, and I am not very sporty, but a few years ago, I got to meet some of these guys as they were tailgating at the beginning of baseball season. And so I got to hear about the Stars. I've got my shirt. I wear it proudly. And
the Stars
like you're saying,
gear is cool.
It is really cool. And so, I got to learn about some of it then. And really, I'm with you. The history behind this is just huge.
Well, there are some technical challenges that I also didn't realize from having that show that we spent a bit on baseball. Also learned from some experts the real challenge that there will be, because it will involve the Nashville Sounds possibly having to move out of town because apparently Major League Baseball does not like to have two teams that would kind of compete with each other in a city like this. So listen, we're learning the fun stories, but also the technical challenges and the news. It's what we bring you on This is Nashville. So today we are bringing you some of the best, our favorites of 2026 so far. And yes, we decided we can say that. We need to take our first break. When we come back, what are we going to have for you? A unique voice in country music.
Oh, yeah.
And the victim of a mass shooting who refuses to be seen as a victim, just as she has refused to be seen as a victim in so many parts of her life. Stay with us. This is Nashville, the best of 2026 so far.
Be right back.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're hitting some of our favorite interviews so far this year, and I'm in the studio with Tasha A.F. Limley as we reminisce about the last couple of months. In fact, it's been a long few months because we had that whole ice storm, if you recall.
Oh my gosh, that was a whole year itself, yeah.
I know. There was before the ice storm and after the ice storm. It was like this mini COVID era. So it makes it seem like a longer, first quarter of the year than maybe...
The year of the horse is kicking,
oh, it is the year of the horse, isn't
kicking us a little bit.
Well, musicians make great radio.
Oh,
we know
yeah.
that. Songwriters, maybe even better. And Reese Palmer is both. She's had this fascinating career. When she started out in country music 20 years ago, she kind of like swallowed her blackness. And she was one of very few black women who had ever, been prominent in country music. Her first big song on country radio, I was fascinated to learn. It was this song about all these things you don't have to be to really be country. She had this line in it about being black, and her label asked her, why don't you just take that out? And she did, because she was wanting to be commercially successful. Well, she's got new music, and I'll tell you, blackness is front and center, including about this song that we discussed. On your new EP titled Perspectives, you have this cover song from the Steel Drivers. So that's the band that Chris Stapleton was a part of for a long time. It's called Can You Run? And I went back and listened to it when the Steel Drivers were doing it, and Chris Stapleton was singing it. And it's one thing to listen to Chris Stapleton sing about being a runaway slave.
Yeah.
It's very different coming from you.
There's smoke down by the river. Hear the cannon and the drum. I've got one thing to ask you, honey. Can you run? You know I hate to ask so late, but the moment's finally come, and there won't be time to change your mind. Can you run? Can you run to the freedom line of a Lincoln soul?
I mean, really, when I first heard that song with Chris Stapleton, I didn't even think too much about what it was about. And when you're singing it, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there were these moments all over the place in 1860, whatever it was for them, that you're thinking, can you run?
Can you run? Yeah.
But how did you choose to cover that song?
So that was thanks to Alice Randall. Alice Randall is, for those that are listening that don't know, she's not only a New York Times bestselling author. She's not just a professor at Vanderbilt. She's a griot. She's the first black woman, one of the first black women to write a #1 country song. She wrote X's and O's with Matrika Burt. Yeah. And she is not only that, but she was Garth Brooks' first publisher and so many other things. And so she's a pioneer, and I'm very fortunate that I've had her as a mentor for a few years. And anyway, we were having dinner here in town, and she was like, I have a song for you. And so I was like, okay, anything that Alice suggests, I'm down. And so she sent it to me, and I listened to it, and I had the same thought that you did. I was just like, that's so interesting that Chris Stapleton not only sang, but was one of the co-writers on this song. And I was just like, I wonder what made them write from the perspective of an enslaved man. And I was immediately just drawn to the material because it sounds like a really upbeat, yeah. And then you listen to the words and you're like, oh. And I take some of that upbeatness to me, I think it translates for me into like anxiety. Like it's whatever is they're feeling on the inside, like this bubbling, like the hope of possibly being free, the anxiety of running and like what that may entail and what may happen and that sort of thing. And yeah, and that kind of set me on the journey for this EP.
Have you talked to them about why they did that song?
I haven't had a chance to talk to them about it.
I don't even know how it works when you
can.
record a cover. If it's sort of like you ever even let them, how you let them know that. But anyway, it's beautiful coming from you, and really enjoyed listening to it. Let me ask, how has your understanding of like your own position in country music changed since recordings you did, let's say 20 years ago?
Oh my gosh, that's a really great question. Honestly, I think when I started this journey, I was very much Reese focused. Like it was about me, and it was about me becoming Faith Hill or becoming Carrie Underwood or like any of these people. And now it's more so like, I would like to leave this better than I found it for the people that are coming behind me. Like it's more so a global approach, I think, that I'm trying to take and that I do take. I'm more concerned about how the industry is going to treat others and how they're going to be received and that sort of thing. And so like just trying to till the ground, I guess, is what I'm trying to do. And like as far as my personal place, I just really focus on like writing the best songs, picking the best songs, singing the best way that I can, making sure that my show is fun and unforgettable and like that sort of thing. And I'm more so focused on that than I am chart position or any of those things, because like that's not ultimately what we remember. It's the people that do memorable things, like that do the iconic things, that say the things that no one else is saying, that sing the songs that no one else will sing. And that's what I'm more focused on.
Reese Palmer over here being iconic. Blake Farmer, Tasha A.F. Lindley in the studio, kind of reflecting back on some of our favorites this year. Tasha, can we get Liv in on this?
Let's behind the glass.
All right, so Liv Lombardi, who's making us sound and look good a lot of days on the board.
Hi.
Liv actually produced this interview with Reese, meaning tracked her down, got her in here.
Advocated hard for this profile, I have to say.
Yeah.
For a little bit of time.
And did not disappoint. In fact, when Reese got up, I said, man, what a golden guest. She's just a great storyteller, yet so poignant. Liv, why were you ready to, introduce her to our audience?
You were throwing down for this one.
I think the thing about Reese that most people don't realize is that she's always that amazing. Even if like if you knew her more personally and were to call her, and she's doing something mundane, like taking care of her two girls and like is exhausted and she has a cold or something, like she would still be that genuinely straightforward and lovely and gracious and kind about anything that she's carrying out.
Yeah.
And so I know that about her on a personal level, but as like a performer, she's done like some iconic things that she's kind of stayed just a little bit under the mainstream radar, that people don't realize. Like when Beyonce started charting as a country artist on Billboard, it was Reese's like, I did that,
Yeah.
And she is never not just 1,000% authentically herself.
Yeah.
And I think that like we seek that as, producers and people that work on this show, those characters and those stories of Nashville. But like, especially within the country music ecosystem, someone that looks like her and has had her experience, to not waver, that's rare,
beautiful.
in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Liv.
Well, and she taught us something. I mean, I have thought so many times about her analogy about her career almost developing like the Black Barbie, which was a story I did not know, but that apparently when the Black Barbie came out, it was basically just Barbie but with brown skin. And then they're like,
and the same mold.
Like the same mold.
Yes.
Yeah, the exact same doll.
And Reese was saying that when she came into country music, that's kind of what she was. She was just like being in the same mold as what country music had been or what a female country artist was. She just happened to be Black and also didn't talk about that. And now it's like, oh, you have different features. You have more to bring us than just someone who
doing someone else's thing.
Reese Palmer gave us a lot to think about. We're listening back to a few of our favorites from this year. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, Tasha A.F. Limley, Liv Lombardi in on here. In February, we had on Erica Pfizer. She owns a pretty hot brunch place called Roasted that I've yet to eat at. But it was the site of a mass shooting, which is one of the reasons that we were interested in talking to her. One person died. Erica herself was among those who was shot in the incident. It was on Easter Sunday of 2024. She told this story, though, about how afterwards someone said, man, I understand what you're going through. You know, I'm a victim, a gun violence victim, too. And she was like, a victim? I hadn't thought of myself as a victim. And she also talked through in our interview about how she'd really never seen herself as a victim, even though she grew up in East Nashville with a mother battling addiction, basically raising her own siblings. And then she herself became a teen mother and had to drop out of high school. She basically said she will never see herself as a statistic. When you talk about becoming a statistic, you kind of became a statistic in that moment. But I'm hearing you say that you never thought of it like that.
I didn't. And I was a statistic when I was a kid, when my mother was a drug addict. So I've always been a statistic. I was a statistic not knowing who my father is. So I've been a statistic. So that was just added to, what I already was. So, but I never looked at myself, as singled out. I've just always looked at myself as great. I don't know where I got that from. I mean, I know my grandmother, but it's just another light in me that allowed me to have this confidence and this light that I have.
People use the term a lot of times like kind of, I'm going to break the cycle. But I'm not hearing you use that kind of language like, it's my job to break this cycle. Name any of those statistics that you just ticked through. Is that part of what drives you?
Oh, for sure. I hate that you haven't heard that from me, because that is one of my biggest things, is breaking the cycle and breaking generational curses. And I have done that within my immediate family. I've broke the cycle from my siblings. They're taking different paths. I'm the one that's taking the better path. Both of my kids have graduated from school. They wasn't young parents. They're doing good in this world as young adults. So I have most definitely broke the cycle. I've broken the cycle of a teen mom. And those that are around me that came from similar situations.
Yeah, and I guess what I meant was I don't hear you even sort of talking about it like a cycle, almost this victim piece that you sort of almost need someone to say, like, well, that was you who couldn't finish high school because you ended up having a child so young, and the mom who was not around because she was struggling with addiction. That almost you have this light and this confidence that makes it almost where somebody else has to show you the negatives that you've been up against.
You're right. No, I do not latch on it, because I really don't look at myself like it'll take someone else to tell my story for me to realize, oh, wow, you're right. My daughter once told me that she was like, I'm not taking it from nobody. My mama came from da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I did,
You're saying that your daughter is even telling your story in a way that you don't. You're like, well, I guess those things are true. And you put those facts in the right order, and it sounds like I overcame a lot here.
Yeah. It was her one day that said that. She's like, I don't want to hear nothing. Like, when people complaining about life or what they can and can't do. She was telling me that one day on the phone, and it made me feel so good, because I'm like, wow, like that, my story alone, outside of my parenting has helped her. But it's like, she's like, she don't take no stuff. And my story is a part of the reason.
Well, that's really beautiful. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. Our guest is Erica Pfizer, owner of Roasted, who has lived through a lot and has got her restaurant back up and running after a mass shooting on Easter Sunday of 2024. Just the latest of many hurdles she's experienced. When you, I think a lot of folks think, well, if I could just get to this, if I could just get that. Then everything will be okay. And I wonder how you feel with the restaurant. If you've been thinking, well, if I can get it across this line, I know we'll be set, and I can move on to worrying about other things.
That is true. It's like we were just getting our feet on the ground at the other place. So it's like we kind of started over. But one thing that keeps me going is the more successful you want to be, the more hurdles you're gonna, come across. So, yes, that is exactly how I think. I'm waiting on that time where I'm just like, okay, we can take this deep breath. But yes, we were almost there at the last place. That's why I know my vision is nothing compared to what my life is going to be.
And Roasted had to move from Salem Town to a new place on Demumbrian. Blake Farmer in the studio with Tasha A.F. Limley.
Hey.
And, Erica, did I tell you this, Tasha, that apparently after that interview aired, somebody from the McMinnville Rotary Club contacted her and was like, hey, can you come out to our place and talk to our group? Which she was really flattered by. Just not accustomed to telling her full story. I think this incident in 2024 kind of made her realize I should talk more about what I've experienced.
Yeah.
And it is powerful. This idea that she almost needed her own daughter to overhear her daughter saying, "Listen, don't do that. If my mom can do this, then you can do that." And you're like, wow, that's a proud mama moment.
Well, yeah, and I love this theme of having our stories reflected back to us, and we can hear them in a different way, or maybe absorb them in a different way. I think that there's some real beauty in being heard, and then like, hey, this is what I see that you've been through, and I don't hear you talking about yourself that way, and how that can work.
Well, it's funny though, because it's easiest in a way to prepare for deep interviews with people who are on the show who have a long trail of things. They've written a book about their life.
Yeah.
They've been interviewed a dozen times.
Yeah, they've been talking about themselves a lot. Yeah.
Scott Hamilton, who we're going to hear later. It's like, well, you could do homework for a year about him. Leonard Slatkin too, who we're going to hear from. Erica Pfizer, you're like, okay, a few news clippings. So you're sort of uncovering things, and it's frankly on my part a little sloppier. Sorry about that. But in its own way, I think it's as beautiful as anything that we could do.
I think this episode is its own excavation of her life. There were some realizations along the way in it that are really beautiful.
We need to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to get classical, and then we're going to put this episode on ice with the most famous ice skater around, now back from the Winter Olympics. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're kind of listening along with you today, wrapping up our time looking back at some of our favorites from 2026 thus far. In the studio with Tasha A.F. Limley, who is our managing editor. We were really fortunate to have Leonard Slatkin on.
Yeah.
And I remember Leonard Slatkin from 20 years ago when I was just starting out as a reporter, because he came in when Kenneth Schermerhorn died. And I remember Leonard Slatkin, the name was familiar to me. And I think it was more because I had heard of his mother and father are famous musicians. So he comes from this long line of musicians. He became a conductor. His brother's also a musician. But he's now back at the Nashville Symphony. When we talked to him, he was kind of in this advising role. And since our interview, he got a promotion of a bit, and he is like the head honcho, the musical director of the Nashville Symphony for the next 3 years. So we really enjoyed our time with Leonard Slatkin.
We live in a visual age now. Not only do we hear music, we see it. Everything is in 4 or 5 minute sound bites, even in the classical world. But orchestras haven't figured that out yet, and they're going to have to. To relate to a younger audience, you have to speak their technological language. One of the things we're going to try to do over the next few years here in Nashville is make the orchestra an integral part of the younger audience as well. Bring them along. Let them understand that the music we play is special, but it's also for everybody. Everybody can listen. It does help maybe to know a little bit about the background of a Beethoven, but it also is a good idea to know a little about the background of Johnny Cash. The more you know about his life, the more you appreciate the music. It's exactly the same thing in the so-called classical field. Young people are sponges, and they absorb what will become important for them in the future. But if you don't expose them to it, they won't know about it. So why not give young people the option? You want to be interested in creating a book, you want to write, you want to sing, you want to do this, make sure that they have a little bit of training, and mostly think about it in terms of history. If you block out all of music and say there is no such thing as music in terms of history, you're really in real trouble. Imagine Nashville without looking back and seeing what were the roots of country music. If you abandon that and don't look at it, you are really depriving yourself of something very important, heritage.
You know, you talk about live performances and what's the difference. And yes, we're visual, but I feel like in person, live, you also get it's just not even on the best audio system. It is not the same to listen to a recording as the chills that might go down your spine from a chord that you couldn't have imagined.
You go to a concert, you don't know from 1 minute to the next exactly what's going to happen, even if it's a piece you know really well. But if you don't know it, you're coming to a concert for the first time, that experience here in Nashville, walking into the Schermerhorn, the Laura Turner Theater, and just seeing it, you already know you're in for something that's extraordinary. And hearing it, unbelievable experience. But you got to get there in the first place. Once you're there, you're going to be hooked.
What is your vision for like the modern leadership of a symphony that might be different from how we've been doing it for a few decades?
Well, the openness to the different styles of music that exist out there. That's the first part. Second part is real involvement in the community to make yourself known to the degree, for example, that somebody on the Predators might be known. People may not go to the hockey game, but they'll know some of the star players.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Let's make our musicians the stars. Let them know who they are and what they do. And even if people don't ever go to the concert, there's an awareness of what it is. So the symphony has to become a little more non-threatening.
Wow. Well, before you came, not to say you hadn't been here in the last 20 years because you are everywhere, it seems. But so 20 years ago, the symphony had not yet won a Grammy. Now it's won 14. I wonder what goals you might have for the symphony in this next decade.
I think it's to expand our audience. Usually we like to say that symphony orchestra appeals to 5 to 6% of a given population of a community. I'd love to see that get up to 10%. Certainly the awareness of the orchestra. Continue to grow the orchestra in its repertoire and its ability to play.
It's a man with some big plans for the Nashville Symphony, even at 81 years old, making those plans. Blake Farmer, Tasha A.F. Limley. It's actually kind of hard to believe that he's 81.
I know, isn't that? That's amazing.
I agree. No, Leonard Slatkin is inspiring. He's done so much. He was at the St. Louis Symphony for a long, long time. He was in Detroit. Washington, D.C. He was in London. I mean, he's really highly sought after and will spend a lot more time here in Nashville making the symphony something that might appeal to a broader audience. And I'm just struck by this idea that he wants to make them a little bit more like local celebrities.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea. I think he's thinking really young, right? Like
he knows you have to.
You have to appeal to everyone, a really broad audience.
Yeah. Well, we'll all be taking in our Leonard Slatkin concerts here soon. He really does have this marvelous story about his parents who they played. I mean, like if you watch an old film from like the 40s, they probably were playing on it. They were like the first chairs of violin and on the cello. For the orchestras that were the music to all of these, big theater productions.
Oh, man.
And so he has stories of, Frank Sinatra hanging out at the house. I mean, he's just so he represents a lot, seen a lot in his 81 years, and still seeing him up on the podium. Maestro Leonard Slatkin.
You're saying we've got him for 3 years?
3 years.
3 years?
3 years. Make the most of it.
Yeah.
We're gonna end this hour with another golden guest. When Scott Hamilton walked in here,
yeah,
I was like, this guy knows how to use a microphone. It was perfectly appropriate to have Scott Hamilton on. We had to schedule it in time to not conflict with his obligations related to the Winter Olympics. Did you watch much of the Winter Olympics?
I got to see a good bit of it.
Did you see Scott on any of it?
I did not see Scott.
Well, I only saw like little. I was just missing him as I would turn things on. But I was something about like, look at this, a guy who's now a big time Middle Tennessee guy over there in Milan and just telling us about ice skating. Probably didn't watch as much ice skating as I should have, but Scott Hamilton, we can talk about that later. Here's the thing I loved about him. It was his story about how he came to Nashville in the first place, which was a long and winding road that did not start anywhere close to Nashville. Here he is.
Right. I found out that LA was a great place to be alone. Really great place to be alone. It's hedges and fences and walls and people live in their cars, and it's just, you can isolate there, and I needed time to heal. And so I just did that. And my choreographer and a coach was there. I'd skate and I'd work out and I'd get my new programs for the next year's tour. And I'd go tour and I'd come back to LA and I'd kind of do that. And it was, it's a very small group of people I'd hang out with, but, it was a good place to heal. And on the 3rd anniversary of my diagnosis, I'm doing a show in Memphis. And Tony Thomas, Danny Thomas's son, okay. we were benefiting St. Jude.
I was going to say, yeah, his name's all over St. Jude.
Yeah. So we were benefiting St. Jude in my tour, and he had a guest coming to the show that night, and I was like, oh, Tony's dating. This is nice. All right, I'm going to check out Tony's date. And I saw this girl standing over by the production office, and I wanted to know what she was like. So I went over, and by then I felt like I was kind of broken and toxic, from everything, and I just wasn't interested in being in a relationship, really. And I meet this girl, and I thought it was Tony's date, and it was like, wow, holy cow, my heart just jumped a little bit. Time for me to step away. So talked to her for 10 minutes, stepped away, and I'm thinking, maybe it's time for me to, if I can, if my heart jumps like that, maybe it's time for me to start thinking about maybe getting back into the game, right? Mm-hmm. So I dismissed it, went back out on tour, playing golf with Tony. He's talking to a girl on the phone. I go, is that the girl from Memphis? And he said, Tracy? And I go, I don't know her. I don't ever knew her name. And he goes, no. She's just a friend. She was just a guest. She's like a little sister. And I was like, really? And he goes, did you like her? And I go, was that a date? And he goes, no. And I go, yes. And I did like her. And so he goes, you know what? I think she's moving to LA this week. And I'm like, no way, really? And then I find out that where I play golf in LA, my favorite caddy is her first cousin.
All right. So listen, he's always looking for a sign, and the signs are lining up.
Yeah, they were lining up big time. So we went out. We connected, went out on a date, and we've been together ever since. And, wow. And on that night, she met me in Memphis. She was driving back home with her cousin who went to the show with her. and just said, "Oh, I met Scott Hamilton backstage." And her cousin said, her cousin named Gina, and Gina says, "What's he like?" And she goes, "That's the type of man I see myself marrying someday." And already she, like, her heart jumped, I guess, too, but I don't know. But anyway, we were dating, and we were getting to a point where it was really amazing. And it was like different than anybody I've ever been with before. And she goes, "I have something really important to talk to you about." And I said, "You can talk to me about anything." And she goes, "Where are you in your relationship with Jesus?" And I had to think for a second, because I believed in God. I just didn't know much about Jesus. And I did know that I wasn't interested in sort of this denominational religion that was, making people fight, over things. And I was just like, I was very honest with her. I just said, "I believe in God. I pray all the time. I just don't know a lot about Jesus, but where do you want me to be?"
What is the right answer here?
What is the right answer? So she goes, "All right, well, this is a little different than I anticipated. So let's, can I introduce you to my pastor?" And so her pastor, Ken Durham, became like, an uncle to us. He and his wife, Nancy, were amazing. And they just took us under their wing, and he helped me understand and grow in my faith. And he handed me a Bible, and he said, "Have you ever read this before?" And I go, "I tried, and I just didn't get it. There was really nobody there to help me." And he goes, "Do you like history?" And I go, "I love history. It's my favorite subject in school." And he goes, "It's a book of history, but don't necessarily focus on the characters. Really pay attention to how God interacted with all of them." And I was like, why didn't somebody tell me this a long time ago? So I started going to church, and I started reading, and all of a sudden the dots started getting connected. All the things that I thought were random didn't feel random anymore. And just everything that, it just didn't feel like it wasn't random.
That's Scott Hamilton here on This Is Nashville, talking about how he later in life got married, ultimately found his way to Nashville. Brad Paisley and his wife Kim are somewhere in that story too, convincing him to call Middle Tennessee his home, and he now says, this is home, like a place he ain't leaving.
Yeah.
What do you make of folks who like have made a life and become famous elsewhere and then kind of relocate here?
I think it's kind of beautiful, but I don't know. It's an interesting question for you to ask. Yeah. It gives me a little bit of pause, but man, are we so glad to have him. Nicole Kidman, some others that are pretty amazing people.
Well, right. It's like, is this their hometown? No, but it's like they're chosen. It's almost like your chosen family. This is like they're chosen. Right.
And when someone like Brad Paisley is bringing you in, and him and his family have like invested so much into our community. Yeah.
And I think Scott Hamilton is very involved with cancer research, and not mostly, as he told us, because of his own experience with cancer, but because of his mother, who died when he was very young. In fact, when he was still, it was not clear that he was going to become a star skater.
Right.
It was the thing that kicked him into gear and said, you know what, I'm going to honor the sacrifices she made so I could train and do all the I mean, you basically have to give up your life if you're going to be an ice skater and figure skater. And he got serious, and I guess it worked. Gold medal.
I guess so.
Gold medal. What else do you want? We're gonna keep bringing the voices from the well known to the unknown, and Tasha A.F. Limley is gonna make sure they're good. So thank you.
Well, they're just, man, people's stories so good.
I know, you can't get enough. Thank you so much for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. You know, we had the Jahangir brothers on earlier this week as our profile interview. Alex and Iman, well-accomplished doctors in their own right, also born in Iran, and have many things to say about that. You can take a listen in our podcast feed or at thisisnashville.org. Today's episode produced by Josh Deepen. It's Liv Lombardi over there making us sound good. The masterminds behind that theme music of Orange and Namir Blade. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Instagram at thisisnashville_WPLN. I am Blake Farmer. Go in peace.